I'm going to have some fun here. I'm going to present to you a toy argument, and I'm going to use premises that are uncontroversial and true. So it is true that when you die, your heartbeat stops. I don't think anyone's going to question that, right? So I'm going to start with a premise that's true. Do we agree, by the way, when you die, your heartbeat stops? Just check in with folks. Have you ever seen anyone die? Check in with me 5 years after I've died and look for a pulse. All right, so when you die, your heartbeat stops. And now follow me here without much comment, step by step. I'm gonna show you an argument. And it's a very simple argument. And precisely because it's simple, I think it's gonna be a good way to focus our thinking. Therefore, life consists in having a heartbeat. Because if you have a definition of what death is, you get a definition of life for free. So if death consists in your heartbeat stopping, then life consists in having a heartbeat. And that's an inference, right? It's a conclusion that's extracted from a premise, and it seems fairly reasonable. So far, nothing weird. So therefore, life consists in having a heartbeat. And, well, a fetus has a heartbeat. It does. I saw, the earliest ultrasound of my oldest son. I remember seeing him, and he was a grain, like a grain of rice. And it was like a little basmati grain of rice in my partner's belly. But it had a little flicker on the screen. You could see it flicker, like a little pixel. That was like black, white, black, white, black, white, kind of flickering. And that was his heart. Had a heartbeat. I mean, it wasn't his heart. The thing was the size of, I'm saying a grain of basmati rice, but I have no clue what the actual size was. The ultrasound technician was showing the belly of my partner. This was really, really early in the pregnancy. And I was freaked because it was like, you could see the little flicker. And I said, what's this flicker? And I said, that's the blood pulse. It's the, right? So a fetus, and this was an embryo, like a really early stage stuff. Fetus is a little later. So a fetus has a heartbeat, and this is true, right? A fetus does have a heartbeat. So we can again say this is a true claim. And we only want to plug in true claims because it's going to be complicated if we have false claims. We're lovers of wisdom. We want true claims. All right. So if a life consists in having a heartbeat and a fetus has a heartbeat, well, therefore, a fetus is alive. And notice this conclusion follows from those two premises. And again, you just stick to what's on the screen right now. We want to make this manageable. And this conclusion follows from these two premises. Well, we can graft more information, right? So we reached this claim that a fetus is alive, and there's a justification above it. And we know that one should not kill. That's a principle, right? Notice, who should not kill? Don't know, don't care. It's a general thing, right? Kill how? With an axe, with a guillotine, with a chainsaw, with a car, like doesn't specify. Just don't kill, right? And the should here is a should not, right? That's a normative claim. So here you have all of the telltale signs of a general principle. So what we have is a general principle. And here we have a particular case, right? A fetus is alive. Okay, so we say and. So now that we've brought this particular situation, right, and we were looking at it in the light of this principle, we can draw a conclusion, a judgment, namely that abortion is killing, or you should not do abortion, right? So because it's a form of killing, you can put a should in here. You could reword this. Right? Now this is a very small argument. It's very simple, and I like it because it's small and simple, because it allows us to meditate a little bit and to have a conversation about it that's going to be nice and focused and rigorous. Now we're going to do another argument, but we're going to start with another premise that's true. When you die, your brain stops. Do we agree? I think this is a true claim. When you die, your brain stops. Come check in with me 2 years after I'm dead and look for brain activity. I'm going to start from true premises because we're lovers of wisdom. We want true premises. So you nodded yes to that, right? And look, you can start with this truth, right? And you can say, well, if I accept that, right, then you can draw a conclusion from that. And notice I'm going to make it as simple, and we're going to go step by step. Just look what I've written down and ask yourself whether it's true or false. Like, you don't want to bring in extra noise, right? No noise. I'm creating a noise-free environment, and all we want to do is we want to focus because we want to remove all this clutter, right? It's like, well, did Mark shave today? What's the length of Mark's beard today? You can't tell, right, on this sheet. Why? Because it's irrelevant, right? It's like you ask yourself, is this true or false? And clearly, when you die, your brain stops. And if you doubt me about that, well, next time someone dies, go see what happens, right? Okay, so let's say that's true. Right, so when you die, your brain stops. You can conclude from that life consists in brain activity. Again, if you get yourself a definition of what death is, you thereby get for free a definition of what life would consist in. So life consists in brain activity. And that's a perfectly reasonable argument so far as it goes, right? If you look at this argument that I'm circling over here, that's a fairly good argument. Like if you didn't know where this was going, there's no reason why you'd reject this argument. It's a perfectly sensible one in any other context, right? All right, so then we graft another piece of knowledge here. A fetus has no brain activity, right? Which is true. I looked this up. I'm no scientist, but to get sort of the brain activity required for consciousness or anything that, merits the word brain activity, it's something like 24, 25 weeks in. Look, the anencephalics don't have brain activity, then the fetus certainly doesn't, because that's way, way more than an anencephalic, right? Way more primitive and unstructured. So a fetus has no brain activity. Well, if it's true that a life consists in brain activity and a fetus has no brain activity, then we can conclude that a fetus is not alive. And that follows as a matter of course. Again, don't move the targets, right? Don't move the goalposts. That's exactly what we have on the screen, and it follows from those premises that a fetus is not alive. Now, we're going to graft to that a principle. Hey, look, it's a good old principle that we know and love. One should not kill. One should not kill. It's the same exact principle. One should not kill. Same thing, not a single change, right? But now it's grafted to a different particular case. A fetus is not alive. Here's a fetus is alive. What's the one word difference between these two claims here? So look carefully at what I've got in the purple boxes. What's the one word that's present in one and not the other? It's no different. The only thing is there's the not in here that the other doesn't have. That is it. Everything else is word for word the same. So one affirms what the other negates. So this affirms and this negates. That is it. Principle, completely the same. Absolutely completely the same, and you can confirm that. One should not kill, one should not kill. And of course, if you say that a fetus is not alive and one should not kill, then you can draw the conclusion that abortion is not killing. Now I want to play another game of spot the difference. What's the one word difference between these two claims here that I'm circling? There you go. All right. I'm putting one in red and I'm putting one in green for no particular reason, just to show you that they're saying opposite things. Like now, whatever abortion is, right? It's either killing or it's not killing. It can't be both, right? So here we have an issue. It's either one or the other. Whatever abortion is and whatever killing is, either abortion is killing or it's not killing. It can't be both at the same time. Hey, is Mark tall or not tall? I'm both tall and not tall, or something like that. It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out that way. For the same reason that if you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant, you can't be in between, right? So it's like, because this, look at how spick and span this is. Now, this is what I want us to meditate on today. And when I mean meditate, I don't just mean like go and kind of fog out our brain and go in this weird sort of take some cannabis and get like really, or, just kind of just zone out or something. What I mean is we're going to focus. Look at this. Notice at the top of this, the premises here are true. This is a true premise. 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 These are all true premises. And notice, moreover, that they're employing, and this might come as a surprise to a lot of people, they're employing the exact same principle. Now, we have some really, really bad terminology in ordinary culture about the abortion debate. What's the abortion is killing side called? The folks who are normally on this side of the debate, people who think abortion is killing, what's their label? So if you're here, you're a pro what? Yeah, this is the pro-life, right? Pro-life, and I'm going to put it in big scare quotes. Pro-life. This is pro-life, and the other side is what's it called? So that's pro-life on this side, and what's the other side called? I'm going to show you these. We want to introduce these terms because we're going to not use them because they are horrible terms, right? Pro-choice, right? That's how these, if you're not doing philosophy, if you're just watching the news or whatever, right? This is how this debate is kind of framed. Pro-life versus pro-choice. Now, this is interesting because you'd think, for instance, right, if you're not pro-life, then you're pro-not-life or pro-death, right? It's very strange terminology. These two sides, if you were to do, again, not philosophy, the space between these two positions is like 1 billion light years wide, right? So if you look at the purple in here, right, that's sort of the common ordinary understanding of this debate. There's so much difference between these two stances that there's so much hate going on either side. And there's like each side regards the other as evil. according to what I have, and I'm going to delete now these labels because they're not helpful labels. What's going on here? Well, there's a few interesting things to note. According to this characterization of these arguments, one should not kill is accepted by both arguments and not by people. We're looking at arguments, right? One should not kill. And Tripajit says, why is the one should not kill needed in this argument? Looks like you can get the conclusion without it. Yeah, well, abortion is a form of killing. It's true, but I want to reword this as you shouldn't do abortion or something like that because it's killing, right? So reword that a little bit, right? But I just want to have a nice sharp contrast. But we could say, for instance, we could reword this conclusion a little more strictly as this, right? You could say something like one should not, and the problem, I'll tell you in a moment, right? Right, one should not abort. Sorry, one should not abort. Just because I don't want to type it, I'll get an abortion. The problem is, if you just want to have a not on either side, Tripajit, is you'd end up with one should abort. But one should abort is a little too strong than what I need. What you actually want to say is one can abort, right? You see that? That's why I'm hesitant to write it out that way, because I want just the not to be present in one claim and not the other, so that we can see the contrast more sharply, Tripajit. Because technically speaking, the conclusion here would have to be one should not abort. That's fairly clear. But then if I want to have a nice sharp contrast, then I get one should abort. And the contrary of should not is not necessarily should, right? It's can. So there's some, if you do the fine-grained logic of what, what are called deontic logic, it's a little trickier. Do you see that, Tripajit? Yeah. But that's technically the conclusion that we should be reaching, right? Something like that. So one should not abort and one can abort. And then you can imagine I could put by the way, you could make this argument a little more complex, right? You could say one can abort. Why? Because abortion is not killing. So if you want, this is now a more robust and rigorous one, right? So you get this conclusion over here that abortion is killing and say, therefore, one should not abort. And then you would have to kind of, you'd have to replug sort of your conclusion somewhere, right? Because you want to get your should, but something along those lines, right? But it's good enough, I think we get it, right? So we don't want to be super strict with the logic here, because we don't want to end up with sort of a claim that's stronger than we need to. But the bottom line for my purposes is this, right? There's an agreement on the principle. It's not like one side of the abortion debates believes in killing. So let me say that again 3 times slowly. It's not like anyone in the abortion debate believes that killing is okay. I'll say it again. It's not like anyone on either side of this entire debate thinks, yeah, killing, go kill. Pro-kill, yay, killing. If that were the case, it'd be really easy to figure out who's the bad guys in this. It's like, well, the pro-kill side, they would be the bad guys. Like, that's not at all what the abortion debate is. The abortion debate is precisely difficult because it's not an ethics debate, right? Look at this here. Strictly speaking, these are my structure of moral reasoning. This is my 3-part structure. It's kind of over here. Right? I'm going to put another color though. The boxes in purple belong to ethics. What do the boxes in sorry, and I'm going to have to make it like this. These boxes in blue belong to which branch of philosophy? It's not ethics. Metaphysics, exactly. The things in purple are ethics. The things in blue are metaphysics. So according to the simplified model that we have on the screen right now, this debate is not a debate in ethics. It's a debate in metaphysics. It's a debate about whether or not a fetus is or is not alive. Now let's go back to our first metaphysics class for a moment. Does everyone remember? Let me just draw it. Does everyone remember this? Type in yes if you remember this. Hopefully I traumatized you enough. Hey, it's the lovable Mr. Schmuck, right? What are we looking at? What's this line? It's a mountain. Yeah, and I love your emoji, right? And remember the thing with the mountain, right? We had a hard time figuring out when the mountain begins and ends, right? So there was an element of unclarity in the boundaries of the mountains. It's clearly easier to say that rock exists, the stuff, right, exists. But if you're going to talk about mountains, like how many mountains are here right now? Is it 1 or is it 2? Right? When is it, and when is the mountain, like when is Mr. Schmuck on the mountain, not on the mountain? We ran into all sorts of problems. Let me now make a nice little diagram for you once again, and that's not one that we did in metaphysics, but just to bring home the idea that this is a metaphysics debate. And again, this is the conclusion over here. Let me do a little diagram here. This is the little basmati rice that I saw with the pulse, right? It's like beep, 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 beep. And this is my boy a day before he came out, like the afternoon before he came out. Let me try. Oh, he looks really weird. Please forgive me, right? All right. So, and then he came, like, so here's the story of my son. And this is all happening inside my partner. So let me just put a nice big bracket around all this. That's my partner's belly. All this is happening inside my partner's belly, right? When is it a person? And that's a metaphysical question if I ask that. So like when is this, like we have a law that says you can't get abortion beyond a certain number of weeks. What's the number of weeks in Canada? There's a law that says you can and you cannot. What's the number of weeks? Does anyone know? That changes from country to country. But what in Canada is the number of weeks? Does anyone know? You can look it up for me if you want. Right? But it doesn't matter. The law in every major country has to stipulate a boundary. That L here stands for the law, and it's going to be a certain number of weeks, right? Whatever that number is, 7 or whatever, right? Whatever the number is, it's going to be a specific number of weeks, right? And it's going to say, here's the cutoff point. Here you can, right? And here you cannot. Well, remember what we said about the mountain, right? You can kind of fix it by stipulation, but stipulation is not argumentation. Like, how do I know I'm tracking something worthwhile when I say it's this number of weeks, right? And you can get really close to this boundary. Let's have some fun. Let's get really, really close to this boundary, all right? Here's, let's say, a certain date. It's the 11th of August, and here's the 12th of August. On the 11th, you can get an abortion, and on the 12th, you can. Actually, let's zoom in even more. It's the 11th at 11:59 p.m. 11:59 p.m. and it's the 12th at 1 minute in the morning. Answer yes or no. Do you think that metaphysically something dramatic happens in that minute? Metaphysically. Maybe legally there's an important change of status, but metaphysically, do you think there's some important boundary that happens in whatever organisms inside there, whatever's happening, like at 12 at midnight? There's nothing happening magically that all of a sudden it's not alive, so not L, not A, right? And all of a sudden it's alive, right? Now, the law, this L, can totally slice its knife right down wherever it wants. But we philosophers, we don't care about the law. We're interested not so much in what people do, but what they should do. I can always say, look, that's what where the law put this, it's sliced, but it ought to have sliced here, right? The is and the oughts are different. I can also say the law should have sliced here. These dotted lines, they don't have to care about what the law says. I can listen to the law and say, that's interesting that folks in Ottawa or in Washington or wherever decide to slice there. And I suppose if you go to a Nordic country, right? But let me now test your intuitions. 3 hours before my partner delivered, would it have been okay to abort her baby? Yes or no? Just give me a quick gut response. We're going to indulge in a little bit of emotions for a moment. 3 hours before she delivered, could we have sucked out whatever was in her belly and threw it in the garbage? I think most people would agree. And the thing is, why? Now, here's the messed up question. So we can all say no really quickly. But what if I say why? Then it's like, that takes a while. That takes a while. This, my friends, is something I'd like you to meditate on, is what's on the screen right now. And notice what we're doing here. We're focusing on the reasons, not the people. And we're not using silly labels that are going to make one group attack another group. We're not about group. We're about comparing arguments. That is, reasons that you can spell out. This is what we're going to be doing. Now, notice here, one should not kill. That stands in need of justification. So presumably you need a space above that to justify that. But we're going to take it as a given. And notice that once you have a more sophisticated understanding of what the real problems are, the feel-good slogans aren't going to help you. The labels aren't going to help you, pro-choice, pro-life, right? Because it's not as if there's another side that's the pro-killing, all right? And this kind of nonsense, right? These kinds of silly labels are not going to help you. So for instance, you'll never go wrong in doing what is right. It's like, yeah, true, but what the hell is right? Like, what is right? Everyone agrees with this meme. Everyone on the planet throughout human history agrees that you'll never go wrong in doing what is right. The question is, what is right? It's not clear what is right.